So the president calling on Congress to authorize more strikes against ISIS, even as he says they are making a lot of progress in stopping ISIS. At one point, seeming to get in a swipe at the previous administration right here.
When we make rash decisions, reacting to the headlines instead of using our heads, when the first response to a challenge is to send in our military, then we risk getting drawn into unnecessary conflicts and neglect the broader strategy we need for a safer, more prosperous world. That's what our enemies want us to do.
Well, Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North is a Fox News military analyst and the author of Counterfeit Lies. How are you, Colonel? Good morning. Good morning to you.
Just the building behind me last night, Bill, is something else. It was surreal.
Yeah, just on the suggestion that Summers saying that he was taking a swipe at President Bush, number 43. What he said at that moment was, "I believe in a smarter kind of American leadership." What did you hear from that?
Well, he also said, Bill, that this crisis is over and that we've turned a page, but he never mentions our enemy, radical Islamic terror. But radical Islam is today larger and more dangerous than ever. The only real line about our military and our veterans and the effectiveness that they've had that made any sense at all to me was his call for employers to hire vets. It was applauded by both sides, but he then offers no incentives for businesses to do so. I'm concerned, Bill, because the address emboldened our enemies and makes our allies wonder if we're serious. And when he says rash decisions, you know, the use of military force has always been the last resort. And we're not being drawn into unnecessary conflicts when, 3,000 Americans got killed on 9/11/01. The neglect of a broader strategy for a safer, more prosperous world really makes our enemies emboldened, and it makes our allies nervous.
Wow, two more topics. What he said in Iraq and Syria, specific to ISIS now is asking for congressional permission to go ahead and execute this war at a time when we've been trying to take out targets for some time now. In Iraq and Syria, American leadership, including our military power, is stopping ISIL's advance. Is that true?
Well, it has slowed ISIL's advance, but the advance is still ongoing. And never forget that old adage from that part of the world. The Westerners have watches, we have time. And ISIS continues to grow, if the intelligence is correct, at a rate about 1,000 a week. Some of them are draftees, but most are volunteers. Some 5,000 plus are coming from Western countries who, by the way, have passports that can get them in here. So over 100, believably, are from the United States itself. And so his model of success is, in fact, a disaster. If you consider it, last year, he described Yemen as a model for success. Last night, as he was speaking, Yemen was going down the tubes. The president of Yemen is now a hostage in his own home. And we now have U.S. Marines of the 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit sitting offshore prepared to evacuate America. How's that policy working for you, Mr. Obama?
Last topic here, and it relates to Yemen in a significant way when you look at the number of detainees at Gitmo now that are from Yemen. Quote, "We work responsibly to cut the population of Gitmo in half. Now it's time to finish the job." In light of what we're watching, will that happen?
Well, the Congress is not going to authorize Gitmo to get closed. They shouldn't.
But he can slowly drain Gitmo and find third parties to take the remaining 126 or whatever the number is today.
Well, and we also know that over a third of those who are released from Gitmo go back to the battlefield and become jihadi leaders again. So the truth of it is, what he's doing now is not a formula for success. What would be, and it has been all along, is returning to the policy of military tribunals that were upheld by the Supreme Court of the United States in the 1940s when we tried, convicted, sentenced, and executed the saboteurs that were put ashore. We did a War Stories episode about this. And the law has not changed, and the reality of the Constitution permits it. We ought to be doing it.
Thank you, Colonel. Oliver North in Washington today.
Thank you, Bill.
Good to see you again.